One of the core values of the Rose Bowl Institute is citizenship. We have an opportunity to be a great citizen when we show up to the polls and vote. You got to think about all the people who have put their life on the line for you to have this right. Make sure you show up to the polls and vote so you can be accounted. Would you rather be counted in or would you rather be counted out? Voting count. And we need you to step up and make a play and vote.
Good afternoon, and welcome back to the final day of the Women's Empowerment Symposium. It's hard to believe we're already at day 3. Thank you all for your energy and engagement throughout this incredible journey. Your passion and insights have truly made this event special. Today, we will focus on citizenship, a core value that emphasizes our responsibility to contribute positively to our communities and the world. As we reflect on the discussions and lessons from the past 2 days and today, let's think about how we can use our leadership skills to make meaningful changes in our communities. We have an exciting lineup of speakers and sessions today, and we encourage you to fully engage in the discussions. Don't forget about the chat function. It's a great way to connect with one another and share your thoughts. Plus, we'll be wrapping up our prize giveaways today, so stay tuned. As a reminder, today is also the last chance to fill out the survey to become eligible for one of our 3 $2,500 scholarships for our aspiring female leaders. We're excited to support the next generation of women who will make an impact. Thank you to all of our panelists, speakers, and moderators for your dedication and contributions. You have all inspired us all to be better citizens and leaders. And of course, a heartfelt thank you to our donors for making this symposium possible. Your support is invaluable. As we wrap up this year's symposium, let's take the lessons we've learned and the connections we've made and carry them forward. The Rose Bowl Institute is so grateful to each of you for being part of today. As we wrap up this year's symposium, let's take the lessons we've learned and the connections we've made and carry them forward. The Rose Bowl Institute is so grateful to each of you for being part of this program. Now, let's dive into our final day. We're excited to introduce our opening speaker, an amazing young professional here at the Rose Bowl Stadium. We are so lucky to have her. Rose Bowl Stadium's event manager, Aria Wesso.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and hello, everyone. My name is Aria Wesso, event coordinator at America Stadium, the Rose Bowl Stadium, where my team and I work behind the scenes to bring our iconic events to life. Welcome to day 3 of the 6th annual Women's Empowerment Symposium. I hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible leaders the past couple of days, and that the wisdom that's been shared has inspired, challenged, and empowered each and every one of you. Day 3 is no different. Today, you'll continue to hear from dynamic speakers, thought-provoking panels, and yes, participate in a few wellness activities to keep us grounded. We've got a lot in store. Today's discussions are all about citizenship and the values it instills in us. For me, workplace citizenship is about respect, collaboration, integrity, and handling challenges with professionalism. There sure are many in the events industry. Today, we'll explore how women are leading charge as change makers in their industries, harnessing civic engagement, and the power of philanthropy. I hope you leave today feeling empowered and ready to make your own impact. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand things over to our host, Angela LaChica. Angela, take it away.
Thank you, Aria. Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of the 6th annual Women's Empowerment Symposium. My name is Angela LaChica. I'm the founder and CEO of LaChica Sports Group and your host here today. The past 2 days have been incredibly inspiring, hearing from so many amazing women leaders across the sports industry. Our 3rd and final day, we hope you take away some tools as we emphasize the importance of women's leadership in philanthropy. Our panels today feature 2 groups of inspiring women who are leaders in their communities and empowering others to drive social change. As a reminder, please share any feedback in the chat sessions of each panel and after the event. Let's kick off our first panel today with an incredible group of women who are leveraging sport to advance social change and drive civic engagement in their communities. Women as Changemakers focuses on the leading role of sports in advancing civic engagement and empowering others to explore in a variety of ways how they can impact their communities, both locally and across the country. This panel will explore the role of athletics in promoting civic engagement and social justice in the years ahead. Let's welcome our amazing group of panelists. First, we have Farlone Toussaint, Director of External Affairs, Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport. Rebecca Otto, founder, the RKO Group. Carmen Green Wilson, co-founder, playmaker, and owner, Good Karma. And lastly, Anne Marie Wiley, healthcare champion, philanthropist, and reality TV star. Thank you all. We'll get started here. We'll start with you, Farlone. Will you please speak to some of the work that each of you do at your organizations to really leverage the power of sport to drive social change?
As you mentioned, I am working at the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport, where our work is in making sport healing for all youth everywhere. That sounds really loaded, so I'll just unpack that really quickly and say that we exist for two reasons. One, because sport, as amazing, as incredible, and as transformative as it has been, can also be a toxic and harmful place, especially for folks who are under-resourced or have been neglected historically by our society. And so we exist to push up against that and say, hey, there are things that exist in sport that need to be better, that need to do better, and we exist to do that. And we also exist to say, for the folks who are doing sport in a healing-centered way, in an inclusive way, in a thoughtful way, we want to make sure folks know that sport is being used all over the world for incredible things, such as social justice movements, such as mental health and Department of Public Health, and all types of sport is being used in so many places and nooks and crannies all over the world to do incredible things, and we exist to lift that up. At the center, I will give you just a quick example of how we're using sport as a tool for social change. We act as a backbone to some incredible coalitions in 15 cities across the country that are specifically getting together to use sport as a tool for social change in their local environments. A quick example of that, there's a coalition in Chicago called Sport for Good Chicago. And this group has been able to advocate and lobby for almost $15 million of government funding specifically for youth sports. What this means is that we as a collective need to be recognized as a force to be reckoned with in the legislative system. And I think that, seeing groups of parents, coaches, neighbors, politicians, clergymen come together and say, sport needs to be recognized as a tool to support my neighborhood, to help my community. It's a powerful thing to be a part of. Happy to share more, but I think, that's a really great, quick example for you.
I really love that. Thank you for sharing. And what my husband and I, we started our foundation called Project Transition in 2018. And I just wanted to jump in because we're really working with the community in the same sort of way. So our motto is really for the youth to be greater than their greatest excuse. We're working with a lot of underserved communities in the Los Angeles area. So a lot of these children are faced with so many barriers throughout their day, whether it's where's their meal going to come from? Where's their transportation to school going to come from? And so if we can just be a small part of their day through coaching, through mentoring, we're really trying to teach them those things that sports can instill in a young person that they're going to be able to carry through their entire life. So whether it be discipline, time management, dedication, leadership skills, we're really wanting to teach them how to overcome the circumstances that they are faced with in their everyday life, because then they're going to be able to be better equipped to overcome challenges in anything that they're facing coming up in their lives. So yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit of what we do with our organization.
I'll jump in and talk about some of the work that I've been able to do over my career with individual athletes that I might work with and or starting playmaker. With the athletes that I've worked with over my career, a lot of times the relationships have started because they have community issues that they want to help address. And so trying to creatively figure out how they can use their voice to amplify whatever the said need is, right? And everybody has a different like area of interest. Sometimes it's social justice, sometimes it's health and wellness, sometimes it's, or mental, along with mental health. And sometimes it's health in general, cancer, diabetes, all of the diseases that have affected them. So my hat kind of changes depending on who I'm talking to. But again, sports being that equalizer that allows people to understand and hear the information that the athlete is providing has been helpful. And obviously we all know, like, for great reasons, good or bad, like, people listen to athletes. And so when they have something positive to say, it usually is a great way to get that message across to people who may not otherwise listen to whatever they're trying to get across to them.
Really, when I look at this question about leveraging sports to drive social change, it's really just been something that I've been working on my entire career. Leveraging sport to drive social change is what I think of when I think of professional athletes. I think that's really what they do. It's usually innate and authentic to who they are at their core. And it's always been my responsibility and my job and my role to help them in leveraging their position and their platform to help drive social change through their cause. And so, I just started my own company this year. And so already finding ways to capitalize on the different issues and goals that my client has and trying to create even more change and create a legacy there. But, starting way back in 2018, finding a way to look at education with one of my clients and as an equalizer and then looking at financial literacy and kind of building on it and just always trying to find ways to make an impact in the community through the athlete. And that's how I've always worked in social change.
And I'm going to go a little bit off script. Like, why sports? Why do you think sports is that ultimate convener? Rebecca, we'll stay on you.
Well, I think several people have touched on it, but I think that sports is a uniter, and sports is a common denominator in a lot of ways. It helps people put aside their differences, and people can really rally behind sports and different teams and athletes, and just there's something special about a live event, and it really happens mostly in sports and music. And so I find that athletes have a really powerful position when it comes to sharing their stance or something that they care about. And there's several instances in the last 20 years and even further back, if you look at it, that athletes have had an incredible impact in the community and specifically in social change. And one of the things I was going to mention earlier was the Take a Knee movement, obviously. And then I think after George Floyd and
there were so many opportunities for athletes to get involved and share ways that fans can get involved, and it happened, and it was an incredible, and it's going to go down obviously in the history books, and it already has. But I think it's because sports and athletes are something that fans and the community rally behind. It's really the only thing I feel like that when your team loses, you still cheer for. So I don't really know anything else and that you can think of that when something's going poorly, you still like feel so strongly about in a positive way. So yeah.
I think sports really gives people something and someone to believe in. I think it transcends all barriers, whether it be gender, racial, socioeconomic. I think it's something that, like we've been saying, it's really a catalyst for everyone to join forces on something. It's so funny. We were at the Chargers game yesterday, and where we were sitting, we were right by the Raider fans. And I don't know if anyone's ever heard what it sounds like when the Raiders are playing, but it is unbelievable. And I was talking to my husband about this, about the concept of a fanatic. And again, we were talking about how it brings people together because it gives everyone a common goal, whether you are a player, a fan, a volunteer, or just supporting in some way. And that, again, can be from the oldest fan to the newest fan. And when you're talking about the young fans specifically, it's sports and the athletes are giving them someone to look up to. They're giving them a role model. And with the messaging that they're portraying, that's why it's so important for them to be able to use these platforms and bring about positive change, because they have all the eyes watching them, from the youngest fan, like I said, to the oldest fan. So again, I think sports really transcends every barrier. And watching it from a few different sides myself, like I played college basketball, much different than pros, but then watching, my husband playing as a professional athlete and how fans really do gravitate towards them. It's really something. I think sports really is the greatest equalizer, and there's nothing that can be compared to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm happy to step in here and offer the brain science, actually, that really is a great, kind of addition to what I'm hearing from my other panel mates here. There's obviously some really great social and intrinsic value in sport, but the science also proves that there are like 3 very special things that happen specifically in sport that don't happen in any other type of intervention, whether it's art or music. I think that sport has a very unique and scientific backed excuse or reason behind it. And I'll give you the quick 3. Number 1, there's a lot of relationship in sport, right? Whether it's between a tennis player and their coach, or between a quarterback and the rest of his offensive line, right? There are relationships. And there's something very unique and special about the relationships in sport, because of the dosage and the amount of times people are connecting. What that does is create trust. And trust is the antidote to stress. Trust is the antidote to trauma. Trust is the antidote to all of the adverse things we experience in our world. And it's unique because there aren't many other places where there is inherent and expected relationships, positive relationships that you can expect, right? It's a very unique aspect of sport that I don't think folks recognize as like a scientific, it's a sticky thing, because relationships are really hard, but relationships in sport tend to be easier because you're doing something hard together. The second thing I'll suggest is this very physiological experience that we call patterned repetitive rhythmic activity. Sounds very scientific. I'm sorry. I have to give the credit to this to Dr. Bruce Perry, by the way. If you're not familiar with him, you should check him out. He wrote a book with Oprah called What Happened to You, all about childhood trauma and stress. Dr. Perry is the one who's kind of double clicked on these three kind of unique things that happen in sport. That second one, that pattern, rhythmic, repetitive activity, he says it so beautifully. There's something that happens where, you know, the safest place anyone has ever been is in their mother's womb, right? And in your mother's womb, all of your needs are met. You don't have to worry about shelter. You don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about how cold or hot it is. And when you're in that space, there is something magical that you'll always remember for the rest of your life, and it's her heartbeat. And there's something intrinsically in rhythm that gets us back to baseline, that gets us back to regulation. If we can think about how movement is patterned, if we can think about how sport has a very unique way of creating patterns for us, then what we're doing is inherently creating safe spaces for folks, because that's something that's physiological. You know, no one can ever duplicate, you know, your mother's womb, right? But you can get as closest to it as possible when you're using pattern, rhythmic, repetitive activity. That gets you back to your homeostasis. And that's unique to sport. You can find some patterns elsewhere, but I'll say that, like, you know, throwing a ball back and forth against a wall, or just the pitter patter of your steps as you walk. These are very unique physiological things that happen in sport that make it so useful in social change or in mental health or in public health. And then the last thing I'll mention is controlled, moderate, and predictable activity. And this, again, sounds very scientific, but to break it down, imagine trying something really hard for the first time, right? It's stressful. It's aversive. You don't even want to try it, right? In sport, there is inherent stress that is created because what you're trying to do is get better, right? The opposite of stress isn't no stress. You have to have a little bit of stress to get better. And what sport does is create this opportunity where we'll use weightlifting as an example. You don't go from 10 weights to 150 pounds, right? You go from 10 to 20 to 25 to 35. There's something very unique about how sport creates this controlled and manageable stress that helps us build resilience. And there are very few places where that also is a natural, you don't have to do any extra work. It happens naturally in sport, that when you create controlled and manageable ways to stress folks out, they get better, they get stronger. They say, oh my gosh, I survived that, so I can do more hard things in the future. So to me, that's why sports, right? Because trust is the antidote to stress, because patterns help us regulate and make us feel safe. And because when we use controlled and manageable stressful moments, we can build resilience that make us stronger and make us braver to do harder things.
Verlone, I can't tell you how much I just enjoyed that. Thank you so much.
I know. It made so much sense, right?
Yes.
It's like,
I loved that so much. And it, like, I can really see that, especially when you're talking about children, and I can really see myself in that. Like, I was, you know, I was raised in a very small farm town in Canada. Sports was my vehicle to go to college and to, you know, get a degree. And my husband grew up in Compton, and sports was his vehicle too. So everything you said really just made so much sense. And when you take these kids who are coming from these very difficult situations, really these fork in the road kids, and you give them consistency, right? Another thing research shows us all the time, psychology shows us, kids need consistency. They need to know what's happening next. So even if, you know, mom or dad isn't present in the home, there's a little bit of instability, sports is going to be that constant for them. It's going to make them feel safe. It's going to make them want to keep coming back. And they're going to become leaders in their community because of sports. And then those are things they're going to bring back to their community. Oh, I love that so much.
It is. Same thing. My son, who doesn't come from a, you know, struggling background, I would say, but my husband was like on it. He's like, you at a certain point, it's like you're on video games, like being a little isolated. He's like, you need to do something. I don't know what it is. You need to join a team. You need to have community. You need to learn how to interact with people. You need to trust. So like all of those things that sport does that maybe something else. And I'm sure there's other things, like if you're in a part of a group, a band or something like that, that you get that as well. But definitely sport immediately, especially if it's a team sport, gives you that. Yeah. So
Thank you all so much for sharing that. That was a great, great insightful conversation. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about our platforms. You know, we each have a platform, especially if you're looking at something as simple but as crucial as exercising our right to vote. So I'd like to hear how each of you leverage the power of your platform. Anne Marie, I'd love to start with you.
Yeah, so I think the most important things, number one is authenticity, because I've learned, especially through social media, people can tell when something is not authentic and when it really doesn't represent who you are. And if people don't believe you, you're not mobilizing anyone. So number one is to be authentic. Number two is to really identify and pinpoint what it is that your message is and what you stand for and what you're trying to convey. And lastly is to be consistent with it, right? And to know that you're always going to get pushback. There's always going to be backlash because you're never going to please everyone. But as long as you are true to who you are, identify what your message is and make sure it's very strong, and then just stay consistent with it through anything that you're doing. I think that's the best thing to do. And then also just knowing, like, social media is a gift and a curse, especially for kids, but it's here and it's here to stay. And I think that we really have to harness the power in it and really use it to our advantage and use it where it is going to highlight your strengths. So those have been the biggest things for me in using my platform.
So I would say everything that she just said. And honestly, I look at it like as if she is speaking as the talent, right?
Yeah.
And because I don't really use my platform like that. I, as a talent manager and PR representative, I really create and craft messages and content for my client, and I'm not really in the forefront. So that would be, if I was, that would be, it could be a thing. So I I believe in everything that she just mentioned, and I also would say that it's important to also that consistency is across all platforms, including events, right? Like, so like the event that you attend and you put together for your cause or in support of, and then the social media and then traditional media, like the unified message is the same across all. So you have a strong brand identity, and that it doesn't waver, it doesn't change. People know who you are, whether you're out at an event and in person, or you do a PR piece, or your social media, or even your marketing. It makes sense. Like everywhere you are, it all makes sense. Like people know who you are, and that what you stand for. And so I think like the cross platform and how you leverage your platform to advocate for social issues, I think it should become the authenticity piece that was spoken about is crucial, because then it's just like I mentioned before, everything's innate. It just, when you become authentic, it starts to like bleed into everything you do. And that's really important.
Yeah, and Carmen, if you could expand on that about the responsibility of using athletes' platform with intention. I think there's a lot to be said when they're trusting you to put out that right message.
Yeah, so back 2018, I guess 2019, around the same time of, George Floyd, all of the social unrest, the COVID era, I work with Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul, and Carmelo Anthony to start the Social Change Fund. So they started this nonprofit. They're big on like doing things together. They're like, okay, I can do this by myself and it'd be fine. But I like, they like leaning on each other because it just makes it much more fun to do. And they hold each other accountable and so on and so forth. So they created the Social Change Fund as a platform to amplify some of the things that are, going on. If it's socioeconomic, if it's right now it's voting, right? So it changes from time and season, right? Based on like what the topic is or issue is. So right now they're partnering with other organizations that really are doing the work, right? They know that's not the work that they do 24/7, but there are some great organizations that are out there that do the work. And so they lean on them to give them the words to help amplify whatever the said goal is, as long as it aligns with the things that are important to them. So as time has gone on, other players have joined this social change fund movement, just because, again, we have an executive director. She gives us the direction. It's all aligned with what is important to the guys. The messaging is consistent. It's also actionable, because you can talk and talk and talk, but like you gotta follow it up with some kind of action. So we've been able to build a really strong organization that's been around and doesn't just pop up when it's voting season or just when it's there year round, to help again support some of the organizations that are in these communities that are doing the work and that understand them way better than we could from afar. So that's one way that I've been able to use my platform or my work to continue to tap into some of these things that are critical or social issues.
I would just add, because I'm thinking about your audience and who's watching this. And I think, as a person who started my activism journey at 15 years old, for me, I had to recognize that social change doesn't happen in a day, and sometimes it doesn't even happen in your lifetime. And, so in terms of my platform as an activist for the last 18 years in sport and social change, I have focused on what is directly in my path. What that means to me is if my friends and my family are not voting or not participating in their local and neighborhood level issues, then that's work I need to be doing, right? I think about, if the folks who are an immediate connection to me don't know what issues I care about, don't know what social change I want to make, then there's something off about what I'm trying to do, right? Because I can't go out there and want to change the world if I can't even change my own house, if I can't change, my kitchen table. And so I do think that, especially in this day and age, because we've got access to social media and because we've got 100,000 followers on TikTok, which I don't even really know what that means. Like, um, just because you have access or that those followers does not mean that you are actually being impactful. And I would encourage folks to think about, like, small is all, right? Like small is a microcosm of the larger, right? Like if you can focus on what's happening for you in your immediate circle, you can impact what's happening on that systemic and larger level. Don't, neglect your local, neighborhood, your local school board, your local, your in your house, down the hallway, at the kitchen table. Don't ignore that so that you can, change the world. because changing the world means nothing if the people next to you, closest to you, don't see the change that you're trying to fight for themselves.
Let's stay on that. We tell our clients all the time, advocacy is a long game, and it's never ending. There's always something to be done. So what are some of the challenges that you all see in this space when you are trying to do the work for good and trying to change your community, or communities at large? Farlone, we'll stay on you.
Yeah, challenges. I would say, just being quite frank with you, one of the biggest challenges I'm seeing is that there's a lot of healing that we are neglecting as a people, as a human race. Like, we are not able to make the impact. We have all these mission statements and we're not making any movement towards these missions. We're not making these reality statements, these mission statements reality, because we are neglecting healing as a part of our social change. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges I see over and over again. It's why I joined Megan Bartlett and David Flynn at the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport, because they were one of the few leaders in the social impact space who recognized that, like, healing is a fundamental requirement for social change, for personal change. There is no change without healing first. We all know that, right? And so I think it's just a challenge, because I meet with folks who, like, they get it, and then they're like, so where does healing begin? How do we even get there? And I think that because we don't incorporate it into our practice or programs, we end up creating performative, at best, interventions that end up getting in the way of our work. And then you got folks out there who are running movements or doing work who are not healed themselves. And what that does is flow into the way that they show up in the world. It shows in the way that they choose to collaborate or not collaborate, right? And so we know that collaboration is required for any social impact to change, or any social impact to be made. And the truth is that people aren't collaborating because they're not healed. And so, it's one of the big challenges I see. I think, sport and movement and play have a really amazing role in addressing that. But it's definitely a challenge in the face of trying to push forward and be the change you want to see in the world. You got to heal first.
No, I agree. I think one of the things is the news cycle changes so quickly, right? So what's important today isn't important like 2 weeks from now. And so if you're in it, right, are you in it for the long run? Or are you just in it for the moment? And so, I think when people find topics or things that matter, they tend to stick with them longer versus like, oh, we see it all the time. There's a hurricane or earthquake or something and people are like dying and we're on it and we send some diapers or send something. And then it's like, oh, we don't even think about. So the human side of it, like, how do we connect and stay connected to, I guess, some of that, the human side of it might allow us to continue the work more consistently or over, sustain it a little longer than just the life cycle of the hot topic. So I see that as like a problem. And then that also makes some of the athletes that I see other people work with, they jump around, is it better to find like the thing that you're passionate about and you stick on that, you stay on that, versus like, I want to be all things to everybody, because everybody you can't do that. You're spread too thin. You don't make the impact that you want. So I think that's an issue that I think over time people need to like kind of dive down into what really is important to them so that they can see the change, because it'll take time.
I love that you guys brought up performative advocacy, because that's like one of my pet peeves, and I see it so much. And that brings me back to why I said it's so important to align with things that are authentically you, because it's so transparent. Like, people can see that, and then you're not affecting change. And also, when I said to be very clear with what your message is, when Carmen just talked about, the athletes jumping around from one cause to another, again, you're not effectively causing change that way, because you're essentially clouding your brand when you do that. And actually really feel funny talking about this because even just being in this space for me is relatively new. And so Rebecca, I'm sure you can appreciate this. I just kind of did this. You know what I mean? I went from being a very private person to a public person. And so I had to figure out all that stuff for myself. And it was a very interesting space, but I think it is so important to just bring it back to those three things. Just be authentic, be very clear in what your direction is, and then just be very consistent. And then I wanted to bring up kids again for a second, because again, we in our foundation work so much with youth, and I personally work so much with youth. And I think a huge barrier right now is the noise, right? Like, think about when we were kids, we didn't have social media. We didn't even have computers barely. And so the amount of noise that kids have to contend with now it's enormous. It's tremendous. Like, I mean, even as an adult, sometimes it's very hard to contend with all of this. So to think that they have to tune everything out in order to even get to the place where they can focus on their schoolwork, they can focus on their family, they can figure out what they want to do later on, they want to figure out what they're going to do after school. Like, we have to understand that they really need direction, and they really need a focus. They need something grounding. And again, that's what sports is going to provide from them, because they are really growing up in a very, very different time than we did. So sports is going to be that constant for them. And if their favorite athlete is going to be their role model and going to be constantly pumping out positive messages to them, then you're going to be shaping a young person who is going to continue to drive that social change in their community. So yeah, that's one of the biggest barriers that I see, is just teaching them how to tune out what is not important and what is. And going back to trauma, like Farland was talking about, the things that kids are saying or are seeing. Like, again, we didn't see these things when we were young. We weren't, constantly seeing war and police brutality and school shootings and all these killings. Like, we weren't seeing those things. So we have to understand that kids' brains are really, really inundated, not just with nonsense, but with really traumatic things. And so they, more than ever, they need something that is going to be an escape for them, just like that fanatic does at a football game. Kids need that escape, and they need that grounding source.
I feel like I am getting so old that I forget what we're talking about by the end of
Challenges.
No,
challenges and advocacy. And then
what the challenges are. Well,
Yeah.
no, so everything that everyone mentioned. No, but no, really. But one of the things I was going to mention is money, obviously. I mean, fundraising, and because everyone thinks that I like to give it a similar example to, like women's sports is so hot right now. Everyone would think that you can get money to get a women's documentary made, or get money for, women's marketing or sponsorships and whatever. And that's what media would lead you to believe. But that's just not true. And it's the same for, for fundraising. I mean, but fundraising for popular issues and or causes and athletes and all of it, right? Like, so I think, to me, that's been a challenge forever, and it still remains a challenge. And I think without money, you really can't do a lot of the work that you want to do. I mean, and a lot of the really big impactful work that you want to do. And I think that is an issue that just, like, a challenge that needs to be continually brought up, right? Like there are brands and there are big companies that have the ability to write checks and support the athletes who are creating campaigns and projects and goals, and they can support those things. And so I think that needs to be brought up, continually. That money remains a challenge when you're creating social change.
So as we wrap, I would love for each of you to share your thoughts on how students could get involved on their campuses. The Rose Bowl Institute does a phenomenal job at engaging young, the next generation of civic leaders and leadership, particularly in the women's empowerment space. But if each of you could share just one piece of advice on what those students could do on their campus from a civic engagement and community engagement standpoint, I think that would be a great way to close us out. And Carmen, we'll start with you.
I would say just identify, topics or things that you're interested in so that, again, you create consistency. You start out as a freshman and, like for 4 years, you're doing that. And then letting them know, like when you start doing things like that, those are resume builders too, right? And it shows like consistency with being a part of something and all of those things. It's when you compare to people for a job after, you get those 4 years in, you're like, what did you do? And you're like, I didn't really do, I was really focused on working. And again, school and work or whatever it is great, but you have to be a little more well-rounded. So if there was a way to say, you have to create like this 360 kind of scope of who you are. And a part of that is like some kind of engagement in philanthropy or community. So I would say that might be a way, and I don't know if there's an office of like student activities or whatever, how they are messaging that, but I think it's an important piece for students to like find something that they're passionate about and then like devote some time to it, knowing that eventually it'll come in handy down the road, I think would be a motivator.
I'll say I'll go, and when I look at intern resumes, I obviously look at the internships that they have or their work experience, but I definitely look to see if they're on different councils or student committees and see how that work or the experience they have there translates to the internship that I'm offering, because that does provide leaderships experience, organizing, event planning, all kinds of things that are like real world experience as well. And then in addition to that, obviously, if you are involved in a committee or an organization that you are passionate about, then you get that exposure and experience as well. So I think you can really be smart and strategic about how you use your time on campus. And like Carmen said, you can identify an issue or something that you're passionate about, but then really use it to your advantage and try to, put down, be an event organizer or on the, or do events or whatever it is that you're trying to do in the long run for your career potentially. I think you could really use it in both ways.
I'll step in here and say, I was lucky enough to know what I wanted to do at a very young age. At 15 years old, I wrote my own mission statement, and I have been pretty spot on with that mission statement for a long time. Happy to share it. But it was about using sport as a tool for social change. But most people are not like that. And I think that that's great. I think that that's okay. I actually think that, the best thing you can do, especially while you're still on a campus, is get you some mentors. And I mean, like every type. I had a mentor for my sports world work. I had a mentor for my finances. I had a mentor for my spirituality. I have a mentor, for when I move to a new part of the country, I have a pack of mentors that act like my board of directors. And when I have a question, I reach out to those mentors, and I've had those mentors for decades. Some mentors I run into at the SBs, at events, and they're like, I knew you'd be here. I had no doubt in my mind because I saw that mission statement. I knew you'd be here. I am a big advocate of mentors. And I think that especially when I was on campus trying to sort out how I was going to become the commissioner of the NBA, my mentor was like, okay, so if that's what you want to do, here are the ways that I imagine you'd need to work there. You'd work to get there. Right. And so I highly recommend a mentor, because maybe you don't exactly know what issue is, your issue. Maybe you don't know what problem you want to solve yet. But if you find someone that is in a space that you admire or you respect, and you build the right relationship, mentorship is about you and how you go after what you want. A mentor has already gotten to where they've gotten to. They don't need advice, right? You need advice. So I highly recommend mentors for everything: finances, career, personal life, relationships. Get you a pack of them, a 12 pack. I guarantee you that, it will help in every aspect and facet of your journey as you work through all of them.
I echo that. I think mentors are so, so important. I would say to use your voice, be very loud. And I mean that in a really good way. That saying, fortune favors the bold. It's been around for so long for a reason. I think it's really, really important to be confident in who you are and what you want to achieve, because know that your path is not going to be easy. Anything worth having is really, really hard to achieve. You're going to hear a lot of no's. You have to be confident in who you are, and just accept those no's and keep using them to fuel you. And yes, find mentors, find peers to collaborate with on whatever your efforts are. Start groups, volunteer for campaigns, go to your professors, ask what research can you help them do, get on publications, join all the things, because you want to pad your resume. But again, I think it's just, we're in the age that, I had to go through all the very academic stuff. And even if that's not your path, there are so many different avenues now for creatives. And it's like you have to carve out your own lane. That's why you have to be so confident in who you are and what you're doing, and don't let anyone sway you from that. And just be loud and confident. And networking is going to be your best friend. And again, those are going to be your peers. You're in, a large campus of your peers. Like, use that to your advantage. Use your professors to your advantage. Those tools are going to be your best friend going forward. But yes, be loud, be confident.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing your incredible insight and your unique perspectives.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
It is time for our final 5-minute wellness break. Each day, we have brought you 5 minutes of movement, mindfulness, and wellness tips that you can implement wherever you are. Today, we are excited to bring you Nikki Frechette, Certified Health and Transformational Life Coach. Nikki will be leading us in a meditation and mindfulness session. Really looking forward to this. After our meditation break, we will have the pleasure of hearing from our special guest host, Dr. Betty Arube, and some pretty other amazing women on the power of philanthropy. You don't want to miss this. All yours, Nikki.
Thank you, Angela. Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki Frechette, and I serve as the mentoring director of the Women's Empowerment Mentorship Program for the Rose Bowl Institute. I am also a community director for Empowered by Women and a life coach passionate about the power of taking a pause. Now, meditation, a free, accessible practice, allows us to slow down, breathe, and connect with ourselves on a deeper level. And in our busy lives, pausing helps us recharge, maintain mental clarity, and approach challenges with renewed focus and purpose. And with all the hats that I wear, I find that meditation is the practice that keeps me centered, calm, and also energized. And it's a simple yet powerful way to foster well-being and balance in both personal and professional life. So let's take a moment to pause and reconnect with ourselves during this inspiring discussion on women as change makers. Now, this meditation will help us ground ourselves, release any tension, and tap into our inner strength and our wise inner voices to continue driving positive change. So if possible, sit comfortably with a tall spine, gently close your eyes, or just soften your gaze. Don't overthink it, just follow my voice. Now take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. Inhale deeply through your nose, letting your breath fill your belly. Hold for a moment, and then exhale fully through your mouth, releasing any tension you may be holding on to. Now feel the ground beneath you supporting you, and imagine roots extending from the soles of your feet into the earth, anchoring you and grounding you in this moment. And with each breath in, feel yourself becoming more centered and calm. And with each exhale, release any stress or worry. Now let's move our attention through our bodies, gently relaxing each part. Start at the top of your head and slowly move down to your forehead, your eyes, your cheeks, your jaw, letting go of any tension. And feel your neck and shoulders soften, releasing any tightness. Feel your chest expand with each breath. Feel the rise and fall of your abdomen with each inhale and exhale. Feel your body present and at ease. Now imagine a warm, glowing light at the center of your chest, right at your heart. Now this light represents your inner strength, your purpose, and your power as a change maker. Now with each breath in, visualize this light growing brighter and expanding throughout your body. Feel its warmth spreading, touching every cell, energizing you and reminding you of your ability to make a difference. And as this light expands beyond your body, imagine it connecting with the lights of everyone around you and everyone on this call. Together we form a powerful web of change makers united in our commitment to positive transformation. Feel this collective strength and support surrounding you. Now take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, silently repeat to yourself, I am powerful, I am purposeful, I am a change maker. Feel these words resonate within you, anchoring in your mission and filling you with renewed energy. Now slowly bring your awareness back to the room. Wiggle your body, gently roll your shoulders. And when you're ready, open your eyes and take in the space around you, bringing with you a sense of calmness, empowerment, and connection. Thank you for taking this moment for yourself. And remember, you carry this inner strength with you always as you continue to advocate, engage, and create meaningful change. Be well.
Thank you, Nikki. What a wonderful time to center ourselves as we get ready for this next panel. I'm excited to share that our next panel will be hosted by Dr. Betty Arube, best-selling author, financial specialist, and board member for the Rose Bowl Legacy Foundation. Dr. Betty co-moderated the Institute's Roundtable Dialogue program earlier this year on teaching the world to give, and we're excited to her to continue the conversation of our amazing panelists today. With her extensive experience, we were so grateful to have her. It's all yours, Dr. Betty.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 6th Annual Women's Empowerment Symposium, everyone. I'm so happy to be here as this topic is very near and dear to my heart, and it's hard to believe that it's been 6 years since we started with under 100 women physically here at the Rose Bowl, and we've gone global. So there are many of you that are listening and observing us from different countries. Last year, we had 7 countries and 33 states, and we're thinking that we're going to be topping that off this year. So very exciting. So welcome to the second panel of this third day of the symposium today. So today we're going to be talking about the power of philanthropy, women driving social impact and community development. So in this panel, we're going to be highlighting how women's philanthropic efforts lead to meaningful social change in different parts of business, in education, in healthcare, environmental sustainability, and also in economic empowerment. So there's so much to learn from these ladies. So let's go ahead and get started, and welcome to our distinguished 4 guest panelists today. So first we have Dion Bolden, co-founder, Sports for Impact, and director of Q81 Foundation and Company. The second guest is Blair Holmes Davis, Director of Community Relations for the Pittsburgh Steelers, none other than. And the third guest we have is Tamla Lewis, Senior Director of Community Affairs and Foundation, AEG, Dignity Health Sports Park. And fourth and not least, our distinguished Deborah Barge, Chief Development Officer of the Big Brothers and Sisters of America. We're so grateful to have all of you wonderful ladies and distinguished guests on today's panel. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to ask each of you to share a short recap of your career. How did you get started? Just spend a couple of minutes. How did you get started and where are you now? And let's go ahead and start with you, Dion.
Good afternoon, everyone. So how did I get started? And my story, I guess, is a really untraditional story because I wouldn't call it a career. And probably not until like 5 years ago, I didn't realize it was a career. I was just doing and going. So we started Q81 Foundation back in 2003. My husband and I, we just had a vision to give. We didn't know how, the nuances of having a foundation or a nonprofit. We just knew that we wanted to give. And someone said, well, if you want to give, you should create a nonprofit. So we did that. And a lot of what we learned, where I learned, was through experience, a little bit of the school of hard knock, a little bit of observation, but just like consistently redefining what charity looks like and being able to change with the times. So I have served as a board member. I've served as a co-director. I've kind of served as Jill of all trades as it relates to the foundation. And I think that was important to me to learn every part, every facet of how to do nonprofit and how to do it properly. So I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to just kind of jump all over. A year ago, we started Sport for Impact, and that was just a reflection of what the times look like now in nonprofit. What it looks like to us is partnership. There's no need to create a whole bunch of other things when there are already these great partnerships out there. So Sport for Impact focuses more on that. Q81, we focus on educational opportunities for children.
Let's go ahead, and there's so much to you, Dion. So we're going to come back to you. I want to hear all about, you have so many different parts to you. Let's go to Blair next. So Blair, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started and where you are today?
Yeah. Well, first, good afternoon. It's an honor to be here with so many amazing women who are leading in a lot of different areas. So this will be my 6th season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I got into the sports world very differently than a lot of people do. So I'm born and raised here in Pittsburgh, went to school here for communications. And then after school, I did a year of AmeriCorps. And one thing that was very clear to me was that I wanted to make sure that I merged my marketing and communications degree with also something around giving back to the community. And so my first year out of college, I was able to be with a local marketing firm here doing marketing, email marketing, social media marketing for ministries and nonprofits. And while that was a really great experience for me, one thing that was really clear is that I loved working more with the community organizations, learning about their history, their mission, how they're trying to give back to the community. And so after that, I went to a local foundation here called the Women and Girls Foundation, ran a program called Girl Gov to get young high school girls interested in civic engagement. It was 100 high school girls, and so it was a wonderful time because we were able to teach them about social justice work, the history of women's rights, also take them to meet their state legislature to learn how they can make an impact in their community, whether it's starting a small community garden or really working on legislation around school admissions or school funding. And so really talking to girls and helping them and equipping them to use their voice as in high school and then after high school. And then after that, went to Adagio Health to be their director of advocacy, which was great because it was a regional healthcare organization focusing on women's health and really focusing on making sure that communities that were healthcare deserts, how do we make sure healthcare is accessible to them? So establishing pop-up clinics, also doing a lot of work with women who are transitioning out of incarceration. And so how does this all bring me to the Pittsburgh Steelers? So Pittsburgh is very, very small. And so it is, I always say your name will be in rooms that you are not even thinking of. And so this position came open here 6 years ago, as I said, and they said, is there anybody that you could recommend? And so my name came up, and I'll never forget because I was actually coming back home from my birthday trip with my husband, and they asked me to come and interview, and I said, okay, I was just like, sure, why not? I don't know if this is going to be a good fit or not. Two different backgrounds. Came in, interviewed with now our GM, Omar Khan, and then they asked me to come back in for an interview with Mr. Rooney. And then within the next couple of days, they offered me a job. And so I am a person who's always up for a challenge. And I said, let's go for it and let's see what happens. And I absolutely love it. Sports is one of those things that can bring so many people together, but also sports has the ability to uplift a lot of issues in our communities in a way that hasn't been done before. And so what I am always passionate about is, number one, humanizing our players on the field, because a lot of people don't know that our players are passionate about so many different things. They're human beings themselves, I always say. They just have a little bit more money in their pocket than we do sometimes. And then also making sure that a lot of the organizations in our area who haven't, been able to receive support or just access to the overall Pittsburgh Steeler organization, that we're making sure that we're elevating them and creating those good partnerships, not only for our organization, but with our players. And then last but not least is working with the NFL on their social responsibility initiatives and then how they look here in a Pittsburgh market. So it is never a dull moment. I'm also a new mom. So my daughter Harper will be is 1 year in a few weeks. So it's never a dull moment here. And this is my first season back from maternity leave. So I'm really excited to continue to get going, continue to do good work.
Thank you so much, Blair, for sharing a little bit of your life and your baby daughter, and congratulations on your baby daughter. Let's go ahead and move over to Tamala. Tamala, tell us a little bit about how you got started and where you are today.
Well, I probably am on the same road of both of my honored panelists here, is that I came a little bit differently into this world. I came in, I grew up in the around the entertainment industry. My dad was a concert promoter, so I grew up around the music industry. I actually, after graduating for college, I did the one thing that he totally did not want me to do, and I got an offer to be signed to Columbia Records, which brought me to Los Angeles. So I came as an artist, but I remember my dad telling me, you have a degree, so you have a plan B. And from there on, I went into doing celebrity events, which brought me a lot of philanthropy work, working with different athletes and artists and things of that sort. So that kind of brought me over to the AEG family here. And I've been with AEG now 21 years. So I say I started when I was 12, and we're going to all go with that. And so I literally have been here from the very beginning. I'm based out of Dignity Health Sports Park, the home of the Los Angeles Galaxy. And also here, I actually started when it was dirt. So it was ground zero. So I had to come in here with wheels spinning on all the ideas, because now we're walking into a venue in a residential area in a community that some may not wanted us here and some of them were excited, but I had to make sure that we were laying a partnership, that we would work together. And so I had to come in with a lot of ideas off the top and try to put those into play. But it's been, on top of just being coming in and working on the philanthropy side and working in community relations. Working with my husband. My husband is Steve Lewis, which is a 4-time Olympic medalist in track and field. And so working with him on different projects as well. And also I am a mom. So I have 2 daughters and a furry son. I have 2 girls. We just became empty nesters, but I guess you can't say that because we have a furry son. Literally I have a daughter that 3 weeks ago, we just moved her into her freshman year in college. And then one daughter who just graduated from college. So it's been a whirlwind, but it is a great experience. But my girls have been beside me giving back from day one. I think both of them started when they were 5. I got them out there on those lines, giving back, serving people, and making sure that they give back to the community and understand that balance of where they come from, and also understanding that everybody does not live the life that you live. And so just making sure that they're well balanced and doing all of what we do as women. It all is a challenge, and we all came through it, and coming from sports and entertainment, coming through the whole COVID scenario where we literally were shut down and fighting through that. But it was a big part of that part was giving back and making sure that our communities were okay, which was also the philanthropy, but it was also a part of us that kept us going through all of that as well. So that's just a small part, but a little bit of where I come from, and I'm just happy to be here and truly honored to sit along with all of you ladies. So thank you.
Okay, so let's move over to Deborah. Deborah, please share with us about how you got started and where you are today.
What a wonderful group of leaders that are on this panel. I'm so grateful to be with all of you. Like so many of you, we had this very windy journey. I am the child of an immigrant mother who is still in my world and just up the street. So I'm also that age where I'm starting to care for my parents that are aging. We've talked about being moms. I'm also a mom, but I do think as women, we also carry a shoulder for caring for our parents. And it's a unifier that many of us feel, especially as we talk to a global audience that we know affects them as well. I started my career journey first in the corporate side. So a little like many of you, I was the person working on supporting causes and organizations, handing out money from the foundation, really excited about those great causes. And I went the opposite way Blair did and went into the causes. I left the corporate world and decided I wanted to go deeper into cause and purpose, starting with a homeless services organization that supported moms who were currently unhoused and needed support with their new babies and ensuring their babies had everything they need. And as I evolved, I went into a great series of organizations that worked on healthcare causes I cared about. Everything from March of Dimes, ensuring that my babies would be born healthy. So while I was pregnant, I was with them, ensuring the healthy birth of both of them. But then cancer causes and causes like ALS and muscular dystrophy, as I had friends and loved ones inflicted by those diseases. But coming out of the pandemic, I needed to change the mission I served because I needed to get closer to communities that looked and reminded me of me, that had an upbringing a little more like mine, where I could see my support and the work I was doing really happening out loud for people across our communities today. And I went seeking and found Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, where I work today, supporting young people across every state in the nation. And there are affiliates around the world in certain countries. We are 120 years old. We support young people through mentorship. And what's so wonderful about this panel is we partner with every single group out here in one way, shape, or form, where bigs and littles get to come have an experience on the field. We are one of those NFL grantees that Blair spoke about, and our folks are getting involved. We are one of the honored causes at Women in Entertainment, where young women are getting exposed to careers and mentorship, because all of us in our journeys, whether we spoke of it out loud or not, someone was in our corner. Someone went before us. We were on their shoulders as we had the next door cracked open that we got to kick down to come through. And through mentorship, we have the opportunity to bring more and more people together. So it's an honor to be with all of you here and have my personal and career journey so out loud amongst all of you.
Wow, Deborah, you've done so much yourself. And I love that, I think all of us can say this. I'm also an immigrant from Colombia, and I also took care of my brother, my oldest brother, when he was dying, and my mom and so forth. And so all of us, I think, are intertwined, and seeing people like us at high levels gives me so much pleasure in being able to elevate individuals. And, I always think, don't ever forget where you came from, and reach back and bring others with you and elevate them. And I think that is a commonality amongst all of the ladies here as well. And you raised, did I read this right, that you successfully raised $1 billion for various philanthropic causes?
I am one of those
Billion with
folks.
a B?
Yeah, I'm one of those joyful folks who have dedicated this last 20 years of my career to raising funds for causes that drive purpose, that make a difference in our local communities, bringing these major national opportunities together, but so people, real humans, are benefiting. And I have the honor of saying I've raised over $1 billion for causes through my career.
That's huge. Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't believe it, now you do believe it. We have an incredible panel. So I'm going to start with a question, because one of the things that we really focus on at the Rose Bowl is, as a Rose Bowl board member for the Legacy Board, we always talk about citizenship. Citizenship as being one of the values of sportsmanship. So can you tell me, and I'm just going to ask all four of you to answer this question, how is it that citizenship plays a role in your life as you focus on impact, on social impact, community development, and then your own philanthropy? What is that? How does that play a role with you? And let me start with Blair, if you can answer the question first, and then we'll go to Dion next.
Yeah, so I think it definitely affects it in multiple different ways, right? From, having the right to vote to things that affect me specifically as a Black woman, especially as a new mom. So, one of the things that I'm particularly passionate about and have done a lot of work on is Black maternal health, and specifically here in my community. So Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women. And so when I think of me as a citizen, things that affect me specifically as a Black woman, things that I know that are causes that our players care about, that our community care about, I always go first in understanding of like, I'm talking to you as a human being, and I'm also talking to you because I have this lived experience. I walk this walk on a regular basis. When I talk to guys about voting and having the right to vote and the access to vote, and I talk to them about how do you want to use your platform to raise voter awareness, I'm talking to them about things that are happening in our community where people in our disabilities community don't have rides to actual polls, right? And so, one of the things that I love so much about what I'm able to do is really looking at the intersections, right? So how are we, for example, we'll just take voting, right? How do we talk about raising awareness of voting, but also how are we talking about the intersection of voting, right? Just because you know where your polling place is at doesn't mean you have access to get there, right? So if you are a person with a disability, if you are senior citizens community, if you are a new voter, how do we make sure that we're providing that access? And so one of the grants that we're talking about philanthropy, one of the grants that we're doing is providing a grant to a local organization here in Pittsburgh that's called Ride to the Polls. And so they will be having a Google link. They'll be calling a lot of different communities to say, hey, if you need a ride to the polls this day, let's go ahead and schedule that and get that done. So we can make, so like, here's where we're going to pick you up. We're going to make sure you get home safely. But talking with our guys about specific things like that, but also being an advocate for those things as well too. And so when we talk about, when I said maternal health, one of our players talked about with me, he said, this is why my wife and I have opted for home births the past couple of times, right? And so when you're talking about citizenship, it's, can go in a variety of different things. But for me specifically, I think of those lived experience. I think of things that affect communities that we're trying to support, communities that I grew up in. I know our players have grown up in as well too. And so how can we really take social impact and philanthropy and support those issues and causes and really make a difference at the end of the day?
For me, that citizenship means we all have a responsibility as citizens in our community. They look a little bit different based on the platform you have. I personally, to me, thrown into a platform, but I could do two things with it. I could hide behind my husband and just say, hey, you go forward, you do it, or I could step out because the platform is mine as well and do what I can to serve my community. What does that look like for me? The responsibility of the communities that we grew up in, I felt like I had a responsibility to improve the educational opportunities. We both grew up in two towns, low SES, probably like 10 minutes away from each other, but one high school each. Probably about 50 books combined for both libraries. So a lack of resources, but also a lack of means to get to the next level, whether that's a four-year university, vocational school, whatever. So we created a scholarship that gives kids the opportunity to not only go to school or go improve themselves at some way, shape, or form. They come back to the community, they serve. So they're also an example to those who are in the community and who have this dream of going to college, but right away they know they can't afford it. I mean, I'm a citizen of the community, but that can go two ways. I could sit back and do nothing about it and kind of, either complain or just wait on someone else to fix it, or I could use my platform to do what I should be doing as a citizen anyway and producing actionable change.
Okay, so thank you so much, Dion. What a beautiful story of reaching back and bringing others with you and really identifying with your own experience. And that's what makes it so much richer when you're able to give from your own experience. Talk about your own experience, Tamala. Let's go to you next. So tell us about citizenship and how that plays into your role.
Well, first of all, citizenship and giving back. First of all, giving back is in a woman's DNA, number one. That's just how we are made. And so citizenship and making sure that, all of the things that you experience, I experience everything as a woman, I experience everything as a Black woman, and understanding the community that you're in.
and that you're out in every single day. You know, I mentioned that we started when there was nothing here. So it was very important for me to get out into the community and listen. As my grandmother used to say, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, is to listen and understand the needs and understand what was required of me to make sure that I'm doing what I can to make sure I'm giving back. But my experiences in the community, growing up in the community, and also understanding and being a very observant of what's going on around me, guided me into everything from understanding, like one of my first events when I started here was a Save the Music in Schools event. And I teamed up with VH1 to do this. And it's funny because the Rose Bowl committee was actually a big part of this event. And also because I knew that the need of in our inner city schools, the music and the dynamic of music and how important it was through all of your education, through mathematics and everything. And knowing that that was being taken away was something from my background that I knew had to be changed. So I created this event called Battle of the High School Marching Bands, where we had bands come from all over the country and they competed here at the stadium. You know, and I remember presenting this idea at the table to some of our executives, and they were like, a band, a Battle of the Bands? The first event brought in 22,000 people into the stadium. And it literally understanding that we brought in all these HBCUs, we brought in all of these band directors to actually go out and visit the schools in California and actually offer scholarships to some of these kids that may never ever see or have this opportunity to see. And then allowing these bands to compete. $10,000 went to the winning band. We took them to Disneyland. Disneyland partnered with me. We marched every band down Main Street. But I remember picking up the phone and calling a school in DC, Frank Ballou. It's the inner city school. And I remember telling the band director, you're selected. And I remember the entire place started crying and kids were screaming and just so excited. These were kids that have never left DC. These are kids that have never seen the West Coast. They were getting ready to experience something that they have never experienced in their life. And that alone caused me to break down with them because I understood, okay, this is what I need to be doing. This is what needs to happen. These opportunities of bringing these kids and these young people into an environment that they may never see or never have is giving access to people in need, giving opportunities to people in need was a big part of me growing up and also my thought and process in making sure that I was giving back in the proper way and understanding everyone's, thought process and cultures. That's a big part. You have to understand all of it to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And, and that kind of drove me to where I am and continuing to go down those paths and making sure that we give our young people access and giving them those opportunities that they may not get without us being here.
I love what you said about giving access and opportunities because sometimes we present something and we expect that they're going to know what to do with it. And we just present it without actually bringing them in and providing the actual access and educating them and bringing them in. It's one of the things that we talk about at the Rose Bowl is really educating the kids and educating the individuals and bringing them in and giving them access to all of you, like we're doing today, giving all of our audience access to the most amazing four ladies. And I know that there are a lot of people that are watching and that are wondering, what are you personally doing? And I know we touched on with some of you, what are you personally doing and what can, in your mind, what can the audience be doing differently to provide access to women in philanthropy and be able to to elevate other women. So when you take a look at what you are doing in your world, what is it that you are doing? And let me start with Deborah. Deborah, what specifically are you doing in your world to bring other women with you?
I love the question. More than half the young people that I have the honor to serve every day are girls. And that means they have an adult woman connected to them. For every young person we serve, there's an adult mentor, that mentor that leans in, because access is not enough. We also need the person that's going to help elevate our social capital, that's going to help guide us through this moment. I don't know what to do with that great opportunity you gave me. I don't know how to bring my whole self into this conversation, but with my mentor, I have someone by my side that lifts me, that ensures I have the confidence to be included. And as so many of us have said, I have somebody where I can see it and therefore I can be it. And every day, part of what I spend personally, as well as our team, is inviting more people in to be a mentor. Join us. There are nearly 40,000 kids around the country that are waiting for a mentor today in our program, but there are 10 million in the United States alone that need a positive mentor in their life, that could benefit from all of that effort, knowledge, and experience that all these folks on this panel and everyone we're speaking with and is listening has. And guess what that investment is? It's time. It's volunteerism, and all of these connect back into the theme of citizenship, into our responsibilities to our society, and about being part of a bigger team in sportsmanship, because together we are part of that team, giving back to our communities in a really powerful way. So for us, it is elevating mentorship.
Elevating mentorship and making sure that every single individual has a mentor. And something you said, if I can see it, I can be it. I love that. That is a quotable quote if I've ever heard one. So if I can see it, I can be it. So be it so that others can see it. I love that. Thank you so much, Deborah. Beautifully said. Let's go to Tamala. Tamala, what are you doing to lift up women and to make sure that women are able to come into this philanthropy world?
One thing I want to say, I totally agree with Deborah. Mentorship is a huge thing of mine. I have like 4 right now, but through Grammy U and several other women in philanthropy organizations. But one of the things that I'm doing this year will be the 11th annual Women in Entertainment Luncheon that I have created for under AEG 11 years ago. And it brings women from sports, music, fashion, film, and TV all under one roof. I was in the past, I had gone to all of these events. They were all one-offs. It was either catered to music or was catered to this or that, because at AEG, we are live entertainment and sports. So it was an idea of bringing all of them under one roof to have this time to be together and actually learn from one another, mentor one another, also bringing young people to the room. And this event has sold out in like 5 minutes. IT hates me when these tickets go up every year, but it has been an incredible. We honor inspirational people. Last year, I honored Magic Johnson and Tina Perry from OWN, and the year before that, Deborah Lee, and also D Nice for getting us through COVID, through his channels. And also, there's been multiple years of Girls Inc. and everyone that I could think of to bring under the table and honor and give these opportunities to. So that is one of my babies. That is one of the many events that I do every year, but that is something that I take seriously in knowing that this is something that has to continue and to give back to, because when we give back to the woman, we give back to the whole family. Across the table. And so we have to make sure that everybody, it affects, it's a trickle effect, when, it leads on to impacting generations when you can impact one person. And so
this event is something that I'm very proud of, and I'm very honored that all of these women and all of these companies support me on this event every year. And it's just one of those things that I'm truly happy
We've been
that it's come
talking
to
about,
fruition.
thank you so much, Tamla. We've been talking about elevating each other and really honoring each other. And the fact that you're honoring men and women, right? So the men that support women should also be elevated. So I love that, Tamla.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Let's go over to Dion and then we'll wrap it up with Blair. Dion, why don't you tell us what you're doing?
I wholeheartedly agree with the mentorship approach. That is probably one of my favorite things to do with Q81 Foundation. We have the scholarship component. A part of the scholarship is reporting back. I'm typically, okay, they can send me an email with their grades. Typically, the ladies. I usually pick up the phone, stay in touch with them. So I like to focus on that particular group of young women who are just starting, but they've always also have had to present some sort of community impact, some form of service to even get the scholarship. So not only are they already there, but they're talking to me for 4 years. They have full access to me for 4 years, text, calls, whatever. So I feel like mentorship is the hallmark of reaching back. It is the hallmark of being able to create a community of women who understand the power of philanthropy and giving back.
I love that, Dion. And I love when you said reporting back as a banker. I love that. So there's accountability there. It isn't just spending the time. And all of you have talked, Deborah, you talked about it, Tamla, you talked about it, Blair. All of us have talked about spending the time and giving the time. Now what? So what? Now what? It's that reporting back and that understanding, okay, to whom much is given, much is expected. And
Yes.
how is time being utilized so that others, 4 generations to come, can come back to us. Thank you so much, Dion. Beautifully said. And Blair,
Thank
let's
you.
wrap it up with you.
Yes, no, thank you all so much. So I fully agree with what everyone has said. Definitely that mentorship piece, sponsorship piece, but also just what we are doing on a regular basis, being women and some of those spaces, very non-traditional roles. So, for me, what I always say when, young people come in, especially young girls, I think what is great to see is that girls flag football, girls sports is continuing to increase, but also making sure that those young women know it's just like, in addition to playing sports, there's all of these opportunities that are within sports businesses, within the NFL, that women are leading. And what I always love to say is that the things that you are seeing on TV on Sunday, Monday night, I feel like we're going to be ended up playing every day of the week soon. But they're being shaped by women. And that is what is so impactful. It's so amazing. So I think to continue to mentorship and sponsor young women, but to continue to understand that my role is about making sure that the next generation of women who want to come into the NFL and want to have these spaces know that they belong here. And that every single time when I'm in a room where I'm the only woman, the only Black woman at that space, it is my responsibility to continue to speak up and also to make it a little bit easier for the next woman who will be in my position. And so I feel like every day my job is continuing to uplift our community, but also making sure that I'm making it a little bit easier for my daughter and the future daughters that will come into this space and continue. I know they were saying it before, but kick some ass. So it's going to be great.
I love that. I love that. So what I'm hearing is, oh, Blair, beautiful way to wrap this up. So non-traditional roles, you belong here. The girls flag football. My daughter's in flag football. I love it. So Sandra will love this. The speak up piece is so important. We've heard about partnerships. We've heard about mentorships. We've heard about honoring women and also honoring the men that support the women, because we are here together and together we are stronger. And we've also heard, and I'm going to leave you with this last quotable quote that we heard from Deborah. If you see it, you can be it. And then we'll pull that string. So let's be it so that others can see it and we can multiply for generations to come. Thank you so much, ladies, for being with us today. Such an honor being part of this amazing panel with these incredible ladies. And for those of you who are watching, I hope that today has made an impact in your ability to just take notes on things that you too can do. You could pull from all of this incredible experience and do this in your own backyard. So if you're not mentoring someone, go out and mentor. Even reverse mentoring is always good so that we can know, how are we doing? How did we do? The mentoring is really important. The championship, providing access to others. And a big, big thank you, most of all, to the Rose Bowl Institute and to the Women's Empowerment Forum, and to Lauren, who has been leading this for the last 6 years. What an incredible opportunity to make an impact at a global level. So this is Dr. Betty, a member of the board of directors of the Legacy Foundation. It's been such a pleasure to be here with all of you. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Dr. Betty. What a wonderful day 3 has been learning about the civic engagement and social justice. I can't wait for our final conversation. Today, we not only have the privilege of hearing from our basketball legend, Cheryl Miller, we also have another very special host who will be interviewing Cheryl, a basketball legend in her own right, Ann Myers-Drysdale. And with that, I turn it over to you, Ann, to dive into the discussion around citizenship.
Thanks so much, Angela, for the introduction, and welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to be joining you for the day 3 of this amazing program. So today, I have the privilege of talking to legendary basketball player, Olympic gold medalist, Hall of Famer, coach, professor, advocate for women, and my good friend, Cheryl Miller. So I'm excited to talk about a lot of different things, Cheryl. And, maybe a lot of people don't know where you came from, where all this happened for you. So starting off in Riverside, you're one of 5 children.
Yes.
And you went to Polytech in Riverside. And you were the first 4-time high school All-American, boys or girls. You hold 2 national high school records. You were 132-4 in high school. You averaged over 32 points, 15 rebounds, and that was without the 3-point shot in a regular size ball. You also were the first to score 105 points in a game. I know some other people have done it, but you were the first. And so you've done so many firsts, and just talk about really kind of your journey, because you're one of 5, you're right in the middle, you have 3 brothers and a sister, but where that all came from, your passion and wanting to play basketball and your competition.
Well, obviously growing up, as you well know, in a big family, if there's something round and it rolls and you can throw it, kick it, or pass it, that's what you played and that's what you did with your siblings. And I was no different. I had 2 older brothers, then my youngest brother, Reggie, a year younger, and then our baby sister, who's 4 years younger. So, sports was what we did. That's all we knew. And I was very fortunate to be athletic, to be a little taller for my age, and so it was a great way and a great introduction for me and my siblings to be a part of a team atmosphere, and that's what really just it started like you, Annie, at a very, very young age.
And you go back that in 1982 when you went to SC, and talk about how you were recruited, because that was the 10-year anniversary of Title IX, and how much Title IX really opened up doors for you, or if you even understood what Title IX was at the time. But going to SC and how you made that decision.
See, it's funny, and you mentioned a few things that I was able to accomplish, but Annie, I was nowhere near the trailblazer that you were. At least I had you. And you were the one that opened up my eyes to being an Olympian. At one point when you're my age at 7 or 8, I thought I was the only girl that played basketball. The only girl that was out there playing football and baseball and all the other sports. But being able at 13 years old to finally watch a women's Olympic team, represent the country, and medal. I mean, you could actually do that. And then on top of that, I can get a scholarship to go to school at USC, which there was no way, shape, or form that my family financially could afford that. So, I was born at the right time, at the right place, with the right skill set.
And talk about having that dream to go to the 84 Olympics. It was in Southern California at that time, but you were going to be in college, graduating in 84, just going to USC. You still hold records. You are the first to have your jersey retired, male or female, at the University of Southern California. So you have accomplished so much for that university, but also for yourself. But talk about, 2 national titles. You were MVP in the tournament both times. A 4-time All-American. You still hold scoring records, rebound records, so many records at USC and through college sports. But the fact though that you had that opportunity to compete and to travel and be in a city that you kind of grew up in Southern California and knew what was going to happen in 1984.
Well, again, you talk about being at the right place at the right time, and it's funny when you talk to a lot of the younger players now, even in college, when they're like, well, don't you wish, you were born now? I'm like, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? I'm so excited for the opportunities that these young ladies have now. But again, I go to Southern California. I'm able to receive a full ride, books and tuition paid for, housing paid for. And then to turn around and, win my first national championship, my second national championship, back to back. And now I get to represent the United States Olympic team in Los Angeles and have my family come and watch. And I'm wearing a jersey that everybody in the country, I'm finally wearing a jersey, not just the SE logo, but now an Olympic jersey where I'm representing the United States. The magnitude of that alone was so overwhelming, but I didn't have to do it alone. And again, Annie, you've always been present at every accomplishment, at every peak and every milestone that I ever achieved was on top of your shoulders. And not just you, there were many other before me. So and you were calling the games, and I could look across and see you, and I'm like, kind of give you a little thumbs up and, put my hand to my heart when I was just signaling to you, I'm so scared, Annie. I'm so scared. And you kind of look and you're like, you're going to be okay. But it was so gratifying for so many different reasons. It's in my backyard. It's with you. It's celebrating with the United States. Again, I just feel like truly, truly blessed and honored to be in the position that I've been.
And talk about that journey in the sense of USA basketball. It wasn't just the Olympics. You represented the United States in a lot of different competitions and going to Russia, traveling the world and seeing the world. And I'm looking at your shirt, equality in women's sports, but also equality for women in general. And so, I look at the family that you were raised in, and you were one of the first African-American coaches in college at that time after you graduated. Now, we had Vivian Stringer and we had Marion Washington, but we did not have a lot of African-American women coaches. So then you coach at USC, and then you leave there, but then you coach in the WNBA, and then you're a professor now, and Professor Miller at USC. But just that journey and seeing the inequities for women throughout the world.
Which still exist. Have we come a long way? Absolutely. Leaps and bounds, but we're nowhere near where we want to be and will eventually be. But with all that said, being said, and you just citing all these things just makes my mind just reflect on this skinny 6'2" knock-kneed kid from Riverside, California, not only gets her education paid for, and as you mentioned, has the opportunity at 16, 17, 18 years of age to travel around the world, experience all these different cultures, see how all these other different women play the game, love the game, view the game, express the game on the floor. I'm not alone. It's global. It's worldwide. And to share that one common goal of basketball, that little round, leather ball that brought each and every one of our experiences together is so humbling. And then to be able to continue my career, whether it was on the sidelines and coaching and mentoring, or whether it was following your footsteps as well, and in broadcasting. No one else was doing that, but you did. You paved the way of doing that. You paved the way. Who would have thought that you, Annie, think about it, to try out with the Indiana Pacers? And watching the footage of it, the raw footage, I'm like, how did she do that? Now, physically, it's one thing, but mentally, you stepping on that practice court, lacing it up with those guys, with the mentality, you're going to make this. This wasn't a sideshow. This wasn't a gimmick. This was your livelihood. This is a goal for you. And for you to put yourself out there as a first. I don't think people realize, I never realized that. And I never felt that I was there alone, but you did. You
also had the opportunity, but you had adversity in your life with injuries. And talk about getting through those things, because, I want to know what you think the role women can play in driving positive change through civic engagement. I mean, just because you have to overcome so much.
The physical limitations were difficult. When I blew my knee out, that was it for me. I knew physically I couldn't get back to where I needed or where I wanted to be. So it did force me into a new career path and a new direction. Mentally, that was challenging. I'm not going to lie. And there were many bouts and many days of self-doubting, depression, fear, anxiety, all those things. And behind it was this giant question mark. So what are you going to do? And then in flashing black and white and bold print, now. And I really had to dig deep, not just into Cheryl, but my faith and what I believed, and finally learning through not failures, but trial and error, and sometimes missing the mark, and giving myself grace and permission to go, okay, wasn't quite there, didn't have quite the answer, but the next time, the next opportunity. And after a while, the stumbling, I got my footing. And the mistake it didn't collapse me, it didn't defeat me. I kind of grew, the thin skin kind of toughened, and the no's weren't as devastating. And all of a sudden, the door started kind of creeping a little wider and open, and this opened up. And now, I see myself doing this, and now this opportunity is presenting itself. So I guess through life experiences, I've learned that if you kind of keep your head up and not look at what's in front of you or a stumbling block, and look about what you might have missed behind you, but if you can keep your face forward and your eyes up, you'd be surprised at how many doors are open for you.
Well, I have to say this quote because this fits you perfectly. Okay. It's from Oprah. Think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is another stepping stone to greatness. And you have certainly shown a lot of greatness through all of the journeys and stepping stones that you've gone through. And so you've made an impact in your community too. And that has been very important to you, to stay connected. And how has that, because again, I go back to your mom and dad and how they raised you to be involved in the community.
I give a lot of credit to my mom, because my mom had always had a spirit of service. And my dad informally taught us how to pay it forward. And what is knowledge unless you pass it on? And not just on your successes, but on your missteps and, on the stumbling blocks or where you could have done things better. I am so fortunate now that I'm in the position where I'm able to share whatever wisdom with the women's basketball team at USC and some of the great talent that's there and that's coming through, and Coach Lindsay Gottlieb, who's opened up the door to her office and to the team and to their lockers where we've been invited in. And that's been nice. That's been nice to kind of sit back and watch these young ladies develop their games on and off the court and their brands. I'm trying to get my head around this whole thing with branding now, where and it's exciting. It's exciting to watch these women trailblaze and use their platforms, their social media, to make a difference and make changes where they see fit for their respective sports.
And we're seeing so many women today that are listening to you speak. And the fact that, sports is such a great platform to be able to encourage and mentor different people. And we've seen the WNBA, which you were a part of in the beginning, and you were the winner of the All-Star game, by the way. And
yes,
going
we
back
were,
to
Coach.
Phoenix.
Yes, we were, Coach.
You're the head coach. I'm an assistant. But, just where the WNBA is today and the opportunities. But what I love is the social platform that these women have in their voice, whether it's to vote, whether it's about what's going on in other parts of the country or other parts of the world. These women have a voice that can change the world.
Their social stance, their social maturity and grasping at the issues that back in the day we didn't even want any parts of, because it was considered, almost taboo to talk about politics, to talk about race, religion, love, sexuality, preferences, all these issues that, supposedly would have been a career killer that are now part of everyone's brand. Just at the All-Star game, watching these women, the fashion statements, are you kidding me? Were ridiculous. These women are beautiful, tall, gracious, elegant, so styled, sophisticated, that it is just amazing and takes your breath away. And the different dialogues and conversations that they have on the daily are inspirational.
And just not only basketball, but we've seen sports open up to so many other women in different avenues, not just as an athlete, but even on the administrative side.
And again, that I just think it's so wonderful, and it's a greater need. There is such a greater need, and then I'm hoping that we are shattering the ceilings on the various positions that we can hold as women to propel one another, to uplift one another. I'm hoping that we can finally get to a place where we're just not always competing for that one position, because we're so talented, we're so bright, we're so intellectually diverse that we can hold so many multiple positions, and we shouldn't be pigeonholed into certain compartments, departments, and categories. We're bigger than that. And I think we're flourishing when we do that for one another and uphold and uplift and encourage each other. And I'm seeing that on such a larger scale now, which has been encouraging and inspiring.
And we see that through sports, that so many women
Yes.
are able to speak out. But we have a lot of young women today, and you mentioned it earlier too, but just the advice that you would give them to, and I don't like the word glass ceiling because I grew up with the sky is the limit, but we know that there are going to be roadblocks. We know that people are going to say no and close the door in their faces. But how do you still continue to encourage them to go forward?
Annie, I think you and I saw a little bit of this, probably maybe the last 2 years, and I'll use what everybody wants to use this as an example, was Caitlin Clark, and it was interesting to see the different ways that we wanted to sit up there and describe the angel Reese and some people had it as a squabble and it's white against black. It's a good basketball versus bad basketball and all types of different scenarios and narratives. But it all came down to one thing for me is how I wanted to see how they were going to interact with one another. And you had two bad.
And you saw it on the All-Star team.
We both saw it. We both saw them interact.
Yes.
In practice, in shoot-arounds, and it was nothing to it. And I just wanted to sit back and not and to the broader conversation that we're having about this. And the reason I'm going in this direction is I want women to stop taking the bait. Can we stop taking the obvious bait? Sometimes, yes, it is a black and white issue, but it's not the narrative. That's a narrative, but it isn't the main point. There's so many different aspects to it, but it was bigger than that. But we have to hold on to something that we think is flashy and bright and this is how it is. That's not the narrative that we're going to float with. And these women aren't going to be sucked into it. They're not going to take the obvious bait because there's nothing there. It was a bunch of nothing burger. And these women are bigger and better than that narrative. And I was so happy just to see them both continue to excel. And the game is going to continue to grow because we want more. Bring on the narratives. We know the truth, but we like the narratives as well.
Yeah. And what sports has given all of us, I think, is young girls need to support young girls. Women need to support women. And we've seen in the business world a lot of times that doesn't always happen. But through sports, I see it more and more happening because we have to stick together.
Yes, we do. We do. And you know what? It is getting better. But when I say not take the bait, that means it across the board. I mean, that's from the boardrooms, to the boardwalk, to the basketball court, to the volleyball, to the sand, to the desert, to wherever the fields, whatever it may be. In the classrooms, whatever profession it may be, we need to treat each other with respect and we need to hide. We can have our differences. You may want to zag, I may want to zig, but at the end of the day, we have one common goal. We want to excel. We want to promote ourselves. We want to promote our sport, our companies, our brands. And that's where we have to be on that single mindset as women that we do have to stick together. It is a sisterhood.
Well, the fact that you've been able to join us on this third day of the 6th year of the Women's Empowerment Symposium, it means the world to me that you've spent time to share your views and your experiences is so important for these young women to see. And I have one more quote, and it's from Michelle Obama, and she says, "People who are truly strong gift others up. People who are truly powerful bring others together." And you certainly have one of the most powerful women that I know. So thank you so much, Cheryl, for being here.
Annie, I've learned from the best. I've learned from the best. Thank you, my sister.
I love you. I love you. Angela, back to you.
Thank you again, Cheryl and Ann. That was so amazing and inspiring. Well, that's it. We have officially concluded 3 days of amazing conversation with inspiring women who are leading the way in sports and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us for the 6th Annual Women's Empowerment Symposium. It has been my pleasure to be a part of this amazing program and spend some time with all of you today. We hope these sessions have been as impactful for you as they have been for all of us. Thank you again to all of our incredible guests for being with us over the past 3 days, and a big thank you to our generous donors. It is with your support that makes these programs like this possible, and we truly appreciate each of you. Please be sure to stay connected with Rose Bowl Institute. Visit rosebowlinstitute.org or follow us along on social @Rose Bowl Institute.